Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of Gamers Without Borders. This is TestZero, and with me are my cohorts from ReviewersUnknown.com, Johnny Chase.
I just finished Saints Row the Third, and I was going to say thank you so much, Nate. Woo!
And Ozzie Arcane.
I'm here, and my PS3's fixed, so I'm happy.
Yay!
Yay! It's no longer bricked.
Yay.
It's no longer
Finally
a brick.
fixed stuff after all that shit, even though this episode is going to go up in a while, so... And, well, there's a lot of content here today. We're going to be discussing the TV shows based on video games, and there's a lot of them. There's a surprising amount. And surprisingly, most of them have been better received than movies based on video games. Would you say that?
I'd say that, because, I mean, even when they get really stupid, they at least keep the general design, true to what it's based off of, like the way things look at least.
So, because there's a lot of content here, it's possible we'll be splitting it into two episodes. So in the first episode, we will be discussing video games specifically based on, TV shows specifically based on video game franchises. For example, the Super Mario Brothers, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Sat AM, Sonic X, Sonic Underground. How many fucking Sonic movies, TV shows were there?
Too many.
Too damn many. And of course, if we do split in the second episode, we'll be talking about things that revolve around video game culture. For example, video game review shows, things that were like people playing video games, things that we might remember from those times, or things that weren't specifically about a particular type of video games, but were inspired by video games. Things like Code Monkeys, or even something. If there was a Scott Pilgrim vs. the World TV show. I'm surprised there wasn't.
I don't know how long.
Probably because the movie wasn't very well received.
Yeah, I don't know how long they could stretch out fighting Seven Evil X's for.
I suppose. So, I want to start with something that we probably all remember seeing, but I was absolutely obsessed with this show back in the day. This was like the 1989, 1988, so I was like 3-4 years old at the time, but the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Yes. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show with Captain Lou Albano and Danny Wells. Was Danny Wells the name of the guy that was Luigi?
Yeah, he was the bartender on the Jeffersons, I think. But this show... I was obsessed with this show. I would watch it constantly, and if I ever missed it, I would get mad at somebody for making me. I would say, "You made me miss Mario's," and I want to watch Mario's right now. It's like, it's not on TV right now. I want to watch Mario, and then I'd throw a tantrum. Of course, I'm like 2-3 years old at this point, so of course I would. But I just fucking loved this show, and looking back, it was so damn stupid.
It was,
really
but it was funny. It was entertaining, though. That was the thing. It's one of those things where it was dumb, but it was fun.
It really kind of did it right, because it looked like the game, and you had like the random blocks floating around in the middle of nowhere, and it just really kind of captured what the video game was. The game was weird as well.
Yeah, and they did a very good job making sure to have all the sound effects and the music from the game as well, which I think really helped it.
Yeah, it did, because, I mean, they would... And, of course, it's pretty much based right around Super Mario Bros. 2 came out. I don't think Super Mario Bros. 3 was really a big thing yet.
No,
it was mostly Mario 2, because you had the Mario 2 enemies, like Mauser, you had Shy Guys, you had Snippets.
And, of course, you had the cast of Super Mario Bros. 2. You had Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess.
Yeah, but the funny thing is they went with Koopa, with Bowser as the main villain, and not Wart.
I guess because more people remember Bowser, or Koopa, I guess. I guess they did call him Koopa.
He was Koopa in the show.
I think part of that was because, spoiler if no one's beaten Mario 2, is the fact that Mario 2 was actually just a dream.
Yeah, but then how come all the enemies are still there?
The thing is, though this may actually be partially because of the cartoon, a lot of those enemies did actually start showing up in later Mario games.
Yeah, which was interesting because those enemies, of course, if you know the story of Mario 2, that game wasn't actually a Mario game. So those enemies only exist in Mario canon because Super Mario Bros. 2 was turned into a Super Mario Bros. Game.
Yeah.
And those enemies were from the original game. They were from Doki Doki Panic, which is why you don't see like any creatures from Super Mario Bros. 1 that repeat in Super Mario Bros. 2.
Yes.
I don't think you see any of them at all.
No.
But I think in actuality, the cartoon was just, it was meant to be based on a combination of the first and the second game. And they just, they're not going to put both Wart and Bowser in there. They want to have one main villain, so they went with Bowser because he was the first villain. That's the way I felt about it.
Yeah, and of course, if you look at his design back then, he looked completely different than he does today.
Yes.
He looked more like his design from the original Super Mario Brothers, which was also considerably different than his later one. A lot of people don't remember that Bowser or Koopa, he was known as Koopa in Japan because there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Nowadays, it's pretty much universally accepted that his name is Bowser, King of the Koopas, but they also occasionally called him King Koopa. And then the Koopas are the little turtle creatures, which I'm pretty sure is a takeoff on the word Kappa. Yeah. Which is the sort of river demon from Japanese mythology.
And you do got to remember that they actually did have Koopa Troopas and Goombas in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show as well.
Yeah, I think
they wanted to have they probably had the Mario 2 enemies just have a wider variety of henchmen.
Yeah, because there weren't all that many enemies in the first Super Mario Bros. There was the Koopas, Goombas, and Beetles, and Spinies, or Thornies. Yeah.
And the Hammer Brothers.
Yeah, the Hammer Brothers. The Hammer Brothers were awesome.
That's really, the only other thing I can say was when watching this as a kid, the only thing I cared about were the cartoons, like the live action stuff.
I didn't care anything about the live action segments.
I didn't even know.
Some really insane guest stars on that show,
like Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, they had Sergeant Slaughter.
I'll tell you this.
Remember that at all?
You may say you didn't like you didn't care about the live action bits. But you realize how important those are if you ever saw Club Mario where they replaced the live-action bits with these guys that were basically stoner dudes hanging out on a rooftop channel surfing.
I don't even remember Club Mario.
I don't remember Club Mario at all.
It was terrible. It was when they had one summer when they were having reruns of the episodes. They ran this. It was the same cartoons, but they replaced the live-action skits. And it was terrible. It was so bad that actually they never re-aired those particular episodes, and they destroyed the tapes.
Ooh.
Why am I now thinking back to a time that Hasbro tried to show reruns of Transformers with a giant cardboard Optimus Prime talking to a little kid?
I'm imagining the Nostalgia Critics review of it. And his horrible costume.
But as much as I love the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, I always looked forward to the Fridays more than the Mario cartoons because I loved the Zelda cartoon.
Honestly, I did not like the Zelda shows. I always kind of dreaded Friday because I was like, "What's the Zelda? I want to go back to Mario's. I don't want this. I want Mario's." Because we didn't have the Legend of Zelda games until much later. And even then, we started off, I think the first one we had was Zelda 2. Which, I mean, nowadays I will far and away say that Zelda 2 is one of my favorite in the series. But back then, I wasn't really a fan of the game. I just guess I considered it too hard, so I just kind of didn't like Zelda or Link or anything.
See, my thing was I was always a big fan of fantasy stuff
and swords and stuff like that.
I loved Ganon in that, as cheesy as he was. I loved the fact that he just teleport because he's too lazy to walk around.
Well, he teleports in the game, so there you go.
And it didn't exactly hurt that I had a massive crush on the cartoon version of Zelda.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of memories of Zelda. The thing with it's probably different than you guys. Well, for me, when I was growing up, I lived out in the mountain area, and we didn't get cable or satellite. We only get maybe 2.5 channels, the half if it's on a good sunny day. So I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. I would get these from my my grandmother. She would tape a lot of these Saturday morning cartoons for me and my brother when we were younger. And when we saw the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, we would just see the little snippets of the Zelda episode that was going to come later that week. So I never actually got to see a full-fledged episode of The Legend of Zelda. I would just get to see just chopped up little bits, and it'd be like, yeah, this Friday. I'm like, okay, what was that?
Well, I will say, as much as I liked the Zelda cartoons, I did hate those little snippets that they felt like they needed to show in like the middle of the week. It's like, okay, you could have used that for more of something else instead of showing us something we're going to watch on Friday
I don't really
anyhow.
recall. Was it kind of like a teaser with voiceover, or was it just like a 30-second clip or
It
of
was like
something?
it was a teaser where they just showed a bunch of really short random clips from the episode that they were going to show on Friday.
Yeah, basically it was the first half of the intro. So it was Zelda giving the exposition, the Triforce of Wisdom, Triforce of Power, once both come together. You must help me. Hey, Zelda, for you, anything. And then they would show like little snippets of the episode. So it was pretty much like the intro to the show, but they were just like, here's what's coming up this week on Zelda.
Yeah, it was like
And it like made no goddamn sense.
it was like maybe 10, 15 seconds, but it was still a waste of time because aside from the fact they had to show that clip, they also had to, record Lou Albano and Danny Wells, pitching the fact that they're going to show this little preview to you. So it ended up being a waste of more like probably a minute of the show.
It's like, don't show me this stuff. We'll go back to Mario. I want to see if they win.
Yeah.
I want to watch Koopa destroy the stupid plumbers.
Yeah, that would never happen. But you talked about you see the stuff on DVD. The stuff is available on DVD, but it's not quite the same, is it?
Yes, and it also was different on re-airings. Like a lot of these shows would later get re-aired on the USA Network, like years afterwards, and it was the same thing. They no longer had the rights to a lot of licensed music that they used in Super Mario Brothers Super Show or Super
These
Mario
shows had
3.
pretty much a musical montage in like every single episode.
Yeah, and then the worst part was they used the same generic track to replace every single piece of music.
Oh wow! They didn't even try to do like a sound alike because in the originals it was just kind of a cover of the song.
It was just this generic guitar music. It's just like down 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 down, and then it's just that same thing over and over again. And they did it for every single song they replaced. It didn't matter if they were replacing Thriller or if they were replacing the Macarena. It's the same generic music no matter what type of song they're replacing. I know the Macarena didn't exist yet, but I'm, using very contrasting, different sounding music as examples.
Yeah. But I remember I have an old VHS of a couple of the episodes. I have the Koopa Claus episode, which has a couple of different segments on it, and then I have one called The Great Gladiator Gig, which I remember watching Koopa Claus a lot more often than the other one. I guess because I didn't know what a gig was, but well, of course now that was back before it meant a gigabyte. But I mean, because they had just songs that I wouldn't have heard of, I wouldn't have ever come across, like stuff from like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, they did have some really random, obscure songs in there sometimes.
They did.
But they always kind of made sure it fit whatever scene they were trying to portray. Although, as I was telling you guys earlier, the funniest one where they took it out was in the Super Mario 3 episode where they had Millie and Vanilli singing, and they
Milli
replaced
Vanilli was in the Super Mario Bros. Show. Did they do their own voices?
I don't know. I don't think they did, but I think they actually used one of their actual songs in the original airing. But then, as I said, they replaced it with the generic guitar riff crap. So they're standing on the stage, moving their lips, and nothing's coming out.
And it's the exact
just
same
like in
music
real life.
and it's the exact same music that you've heard in every previous episode too.
Yeah, and the funniest thing is they used that. They didn't just use that music in the Mario cartoons. They used it in the Captain N cartoons to replace it as well.
Oh, yeah.
So you've heard if you watch all those DVDs really close together, you really fucking hate that music.
I might have to use that music as our outro theme.
If we can find
Send it to him, Matt. Find it. Send it to him. Yeah.
Well,
Super
you mentioned
Mario
Captain
3.
N. Oh, Johnny, did you have anything more to add?
Well, not to the Super Mario Super Show, not really. But we gonna go right to Mario 3, or do you want to do?
It's really the same show. I mean, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Bros. Super Mario World.
Well,
they're really kind of the same show.
There were differences in them. I mean, because for one thing, you brought in the Koopa Kids, who were all misnamed.
Well, because the show was made it was after they had Well, if I recall, the show was made to coincide with the release of the video game. The characters, no, it was based on Super Mario Bros. 3, which had, and they didn't get named though until until Super Mario World, weren't they?
I don't think so, because they
Yeah,
had to have names for the bosses.
Yeah,
They were
that's
the
true.
bosses in Super Mario 3, but I don't think they were named until Super Mario World.
No. They were named in 3. I think they were named in the instruction booklet, but
they had them in the.
they got their
instruction
name.
booklet.
They got their names, and they got their names were shown in the game in Mario World.
Okay, well, in that case, then if I recall, then they designed the characters around the show to be released to coincide with the game, but they had it from an early thing, so the production of the show began before they had finalized the names of the characters in the games. So they just came up with their own names for the TV show.
Yeah, so Wendy Koopa was Cootie Pie, and that's actually sadly the only one I actually remember off the top of my head.
And it was like...
I remember most of their names, but I can't remember who all of them go to. It was like you got Cheatsy, Bully...
Cheatsy, and Bully was like was Roy...
Roy Jr.
Morton Koopa Jr.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple things to talk about before we go on to Captain N about the other Mario shows. See, what the difference was with the ones that they were showing Super Mario Super Show, they never stayed in one central location. It was always like we're in the jungle or we're in space,
Jungle Land or we're in space.
Yeah.
We're in,
they were like doing a different parody every episode.
Yeah. But with Mario 3, they were always in the Mushroom Kingdom, and it always looked like the game, and it always sounded like the game too, because they got the music right from the games and the sound effects. One of my favorite episodes of Mario Bros. 3 was actually the finale called Super Koopa. They actually made this amulet where Bowser could have all the powers, but he could only do them in the real world. There's a point where he's in the Karibo shoe with the raccoon tail and with the fire flower. So he's flying around as a raccoon in a shoe and shooting fireballs.
Your argument is invalid.
In Brooklyn.
No. They were in Paris.
I thought it was Brooklyn.
They were in Brooklyn when they used a time device to make the Mario Brothers babies. Yeah.
They did go to the real world a couple times in those shows, so you kind of lose track.
They did kind of cross over a lot, because I have a DVD of Super Mario Bros. 3 that I watched at one point, but I haven't watched it in a couple years, but I remember they did have a lot of crossovers with the real world. They had a lot more in that series.
That was one thing that was kind of weird, is the show got really weird when they went to Super Mario World, because they're completely changing environments. They got rid of Toad, they don't explain why they're here and why there's all these new characters, and they never reference the real world in Super Mario World.
Yeah. Same voice cast too, so it's almost the same thing. And then they added Yoshi, and they gave him this stupid voice. It's a Jar Jar Binks like voice.
But Yoshi was nowhere near as bad as Oogtar the Caveman.
I do not recall him at all.
He was a caveman version of Scrappy Doo, basically.
I'm afraid now.
I have really bad memories right now. Basically, I saw the show before I ever played a Super Nintendo in Super Mario World. So when I finally got my hands on a console and a copy of the game, I'm ashamed to admit it. I was trying to find him. I was actually actively no. I was young. I didn't think he was that annoying. When you're young, you're stupid. You don't think characters are supposed to be that annoying. I actually was trying to look for him and be like, oh, I can find him. He could be another playable character. We could go off and have adventures in Dinosaur World. He's not in the game. I'm like, what the hell?
None of the cave people were.
No, there was no such thing as cave people in that world. It was just, oh, Princess got captured again. Go rescue her.
Yeah, it was like they decided because the game had dinosaurs, they needed to add cave people to the cartoon.
And a ton of dinosaurs.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, because the Super Mario World is kind of a dino world, which it never really seemed like it never really made sense, but I guess it works.
Well, in the game, there's more dinosaur type enemies.
Yeah, Rex and the Rex is the only one I remember.
Which sadly, I don't think they utilized as much in the cartoon, in spite of the setting they were using. They still mainly kind of stuck with most of the normal Koopa enemies, which doesn't really make sense. Then again, you realize they've got all the Koopa kids in there, so like half the time they don't even need henchmen.
Yeah, they just send out one of the Koopa kids, they get defeated, and hey, there's 8 minutes killed.
So I remember my favorite episode of Super Mario World though was it might have been Super Mario World or it might have been Super Mario 3. I can't remember which one it was. Koopa decides to try and become the ruler legitimately. He has a presidential election against Princess Toadstool.
I think that was
That's
3.
honestly not a terrible idea.
And
I'm pretty sure that was 3.
He takes a potion that allows him to be nice. So then when it wears off and he loses, he's looking at the votes. He's like, "How can I be the only person that voted for me?" And his kids are like, "Sorry, Dad, she's just so nice."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was 3, but I'm tapped out on Mario cartoons right now, so
Captain N
Let's move on to
Captain
something
N.
that has nothing to do with Mario. Captain N.
had some of the Mario sound effects.
it went through a warp zone and you heard the pipe sound.
Yeah, and the jump noises.
Yeah, what a
Oh.
concept for this show. Like a video land, like every world is merged together.
So it's basically the forerunner to Super Smash Brothers.
Kinda, but I think they really designed that based off of going, what would kids really want to do? I know, they'd want to enter the video games themselves and save the day.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I could see that being popular. How the fuck did they screw that up?
I mean, who doesn't want to, enter a fantasy land, save the world, and hang around with a scantily clad princess?
Exactly.
Sign me up.
But, a lot of people always complain about the character designs and that. I think one thing you got to really think about, though, is back in the 80s, you didn't really have a lot to go on to figure out what they were supposed to look like.
Yeah, but you could still... You could base it on their sprites, and still, they look nothing like their fucking sprites.
Yeah, but the thing is, I do argue that Mega Man could have looked far worse because they could have made him look like bad box art Mega Man.
Yeah.
I think he is the bad box art Mega Man, just painted green.
Yeah, why the hell is he green?
I don't know.
Does he have
That
Woodman's
I
weapon
don't
or
really
something?
understand.
And why does he sound like he had a whole box of marbles?
Like he smoked an entire Marlboro factory.
Yeah, they I think they just, then again, they might have just wanted to make Captain N look really good, so they had to make every single one of the other heroes annoying in some way. Because, Mega Man has to say, Mega this, Mega that, smoke a pack of cigarettes, Mega cigarettes.
And then Kid Icarus has to put Ickis at the end of everything.
Yeah.
And then,
because he's supposed to be Greek. Ooh.
Then Simon Belmont looks like the love child of Fabio and Jay Leno.
I would actually say he looks like Johnny Bravo about to take a trip to the Himalayas.
But
He just forgot his shades.
I don't know how they managed to get them so far off model from their games.
Well,
it's like they deliberately tried to. Was it a copyright thing? Like they were able to license the names but not the images?
I don't think that's what it is. I think they I should have mentioned this before we started. I saw artwork the other day that made it look like the show could have actually been worse than what we got. Because I saw concept art. And originally, instead of Captain N, the main character was going to be Paperboy.
Paperboy?
Yes.
I'm going to stop you, Mother Brain.
They didn't like the idea.
Face.
But speaking of copyright issues, actual funny thing is there were comics of both, the Captain N, Mario, and Zelda cartoons.
I think I had a couple of those.
The interesting thing about the comics is they only had the rights to the Nintendo characters. So Captain N only had Kid Icarus with him, but they added in Samus Aran.
Well, yeah, because Mother Brain's the main villain.
Who they decided to have a crush on Captain N.
Who, Samus?
Yes.
Okay. Thank God they established in the game that you're actually playing as a girl.
Yeah, thank
that
goodness.
would have been really awkward.
Well, they show her with her helmet off in the comic, but it was so it's interesting because the comic you had less characters, and they got everyone's looking right pretty much. Because Kid Icarus looks kind of silly, but his basic design they got right.
Yeah,
Mega Man and Belmont were the ones that really they screwed up on.
Okay, well, let's step away from the horrible games of the horrible game TV shows of the past. Let's look forward to other things like in the early '90s, more stuff from that era, because you had at a certain point you started seeing a really big influx of anime based on video games, and then video games that were in turn based on the anime. They basically came out at right around the same time and were designed to basically promote each other. I think the most clear and obvious, most prevalent example of this is the Pokemon series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the early days. It pretty much like you watch that from the beginning to near the end, which I kind of fell off in the end, but
I don't think
it pretty much followed.
I stopped watching
I
it
mean,
I stopped watching it. I think I watched the finale of the original series back until it became like Gold and Silver or whatever came out next.
Yeah.
But I watched up to the end of the first series. And that was a long fucking show, because it aired like every damn day.
Yeah.
It aired at like 7 a.m., so I would watch it as I was getting ready for school, and then of course we'd talk about it during school the next day.
Yeah. It pretty much followed Red and Blue to a T. I mean, like, you could go through that. Like, if you got stuck on the game, you could go watch the anime, and they would tell you exactly where to go next.
Oh, I have to go to the SSN next, or the Saint Anne, as they call it.
And not only that, the anime also told you how to beat every single gym trainer. They told you what type of Pokemon you're supposed to use. Sure, sometimes Ash didn't listen and just used Pikachu anyhow, but they told you what he was supposed to use.
Still ended up winning, or he fought so hard. It's like, you fought valiantly, here's the badge anyway, even though you didn't defeat me. It's like, you can't get that in the game. That doesn't work in the game.
Yeah, you can't hit the sprinklers and use Thundershock against Onyx. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you can't even do like dodge attacks. You have or tackles, or they never. That was the thing about the show. They never really gave it the exact same way, because the combat in the show was always so much more interesting than in the game, and you knew like maybe they were limited to what they were capable of doing with the games. But as it went on, they never really tried to mimic what they could do in the show. They couldn't like move around or dodge or do like tackles, and that wasn't part of their 4 moves. Because Pikachu clearly has more than just 4 moves.
Yeah, well,
and so I mean, it was very closely based on the games, but they still didn't. They still took many liberties that made you jealous that they could do that in the show, but you could never do that in the game.
Yeah.
Another pro tip from the anime that would translate to the game: don't give up your Pokemon because they fall in love with another one. Keep that shit. You don't give up Butterfree. You don't give up Butterfree.
Catch the other Pokemon, and then you can breed them.
You don't give up Butterfree just because he finds a pink Butterfree and falls in love.
Well,
doesn't work that way.
Well, at that point, he already had all 3 of the evolutions, so he had completed that part of the Pokédex. And at what point is a bug Pokemon really all that useful anymore?
Butterfree
I had one on my team, and he had all status moves. He had Stun Spore, he had Sleeping Powder, he had Hypnosis.
Not only that, the other thing about Butterfree is he gets Confusion, which counts as a psychic attack, and in the earlier parts of the game, that's a really big help because
I was in the Nuzlocke challenge, and he basically got me through Mount Moon.
Because you don't get many psychic Pokemon early in the game.
No, you're lucky to catch an Abra if you don't run away right away.
Yeah.
And I know challenge. If that's the first guy you encounter, you're fucked.
I know people that wasted a Master Ball on Abra because they got pissed at him.
When I was playing Diamond, I just traded for an Abra, and he was basically my leader throughout the entire game. But then since I traded for him, he gained so much experience that he leveled faster than I could get badges.
But I used to really love the anime, though. I mean, mostly because of Team Rocket, but
Team Rocket, fucking.
But when I really stopped being able to watch it is when they moved on to the next game, because then they started treating you like you're stupid, and they were explaining the rules all over again.
Well, keep in mind this is Ash, but yeah.
Well, the thing is they're treating the audience like you don't already know that grass is weak against fire. You told us that last season. We don't need to know again.
Well, I'm guessing they do kind of just, they reboot the series every time, and they have to figure out, like, each character is just a different, yeah, each series is just its own standalone, so they have to assume that the audience is completely new to it. And they do that a lot with comic books, too, where they completely reboot the series every, I don't know, couple of years, so that newcomers can get into it.
Yeah, and then they wonder why all their subscribers left.
They do that in the games as well. Like when you start off as a new trainer in a new region, they do kind of give you the rules over again when you get your starter and do all that.
Because you got to assume, of course, that would be a major.
That makes more sense.
Although it wouldn't be, I guess it would make more sense. Although you could use that same logic to argue about the TV shows.
Yeah, but I mean, with a game, it makes more sense because with any game, you have to assume there's a chance the person hasn't played the previous game. With a TV show, you can kind of go, well, why don't you go back and watch the earlier episodes?
Well, sometimes they can't get them. Sometimes they're not available on DVD, and sometimes there's like 500 episodes.
True.
But there was another cool thing that happened within. There's another cool thing that kind of happened in the realm of Pokemon where the anime got so big and like Team Rocket and Meowth got so popular that they re-released another version of Pokemon Yellow.
Yes, Pokemon Yellow.
When you get Pikachu as your starter, who follows you outside of his Pokeball, and in random points in the game, you will actually meet up with Jesse and James with Team Rocket, and you will fight their Pokemon, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's cool, but you know what I find incredibly annoying about that? When they remade the games for Game Boy Advance, they didn't bother to include that feature. They just
that's true.
They just redid Red and Blue. I was like, why would you do that? You have a better version of the game you could have remade. Why?
And they had new artwork for all the Pokemon that actually looked more closer to their original artwork.
Yeah, that's what they did in the in Yellow too. They completely redid all the sprites to make them look more like they did in the anime.
So Blastoise didn't look like fucking. What the fuck was Blastoise in Pokemon Blue? What the hell?
Like that little swirl on him. And...
No, he was like he looked like a block. He was like, what the hell?
I always named Blastoise Bowser. Cross Nintendo reference.
Yes, well, because it is Nintendo. But yeah, you can look at pretty much any anime, and usually there's a game based on it. And in turn, if there's a JRPG, almost every freaking JRPG has an anime based on it.
I wouldn't say any anime. I mean,
a lot of them.
Any action-oriented anime. I
guess action-oriented anime or I suppose any JRPG would be a safer bet. Has at least some sort of an anime or TV show based off of it, even if it's just like an OVA.
Yeah, but I mean, because with anime, you realize over in Japan, anime is about as well received as our live-action television is. So they have basically anime versions of sitcoms, and I don't know what the fuck you would do with a sitcom-based video game.
Family Guy kind of.
Seinfeld, the fighting game.
Full House, the fighting game.
I'm just thinking of Seinfeld, the fighting game. As soon as like George versus Elaine, you killed independent George Elaine.
Newman wins. Fatality.
Oh God.
Oh man. Well, moving away from Pokemon, there was another show that debuted pretty much right around the same time and was almost a complete competitor to it with Digimon. A friend of mine pretty much put this perfect way. Pokemon are pets, Digimon are partners.
That makes sense because the Digimon can actually speak in English. Even though I never watched Digimon, I just,
I liked
about
Digimon. It was a lot more serious than the Pokemon anime. And the Pokemon was very episodic, but Digimon actually had like a storyline behind it and actual character development. Instead, in Pokemon, Ash is just a moron the whole damn time.
Yeah, you know what else actually had a storyline to it? Monster Rancher. It's a shame we didn't get all of it out over here, though, so I don't know how it ends.
I think people were kind of burnt out on that whole collect monsters and fight with them genre when Monster Rancher seemed to kind of be ripping off. Were kind of...
Here's the thing, though. The game Monster Rancher came out before Pokemon. The anime, however, came out afterwards.
Yeah, but it's just a matter of too many people had the same idea at the same time, and it just got oversaturated, and nobody fucking cared anymore. It's like, Monster Rancher, I'm already watching Pokemon and Digimon, I don't need a third fucking game.
Yeah, I just thought Monster Rancher was interesting because there was like an evil overlord and shit.
Well, of course you would be interested in them.
Well, not as a fan of the villain, just that it was a more interesting storyline. Whatever.
And of course, not all of these TV shows were really worth watching. For example, Final Fantasy Unlimited. Have any of you had the opportunity? I suppose the word would be.
I'm trying. You know what? No, I haven't. I know Final Fantasy Unlimited. The thing is, there was another Final Fantasy anime that was like a 2-episode OVA. I saw that, and it was really, really weird because I remember there being a little girl that got a magical crystal in her butt that made her butt glow, and it was just fucking weird. Yeah, I don't really.
Final Fantasy Unlimited seemed to mostly. First of all, it had nothing to do with any of the main characters, even though it was based somewhat around Final Fantasy VII. The only main character was Vincent. And so it's like the main cast of the show would kind of get in trouble. Vincent would show up, and he would load all of his ammo into his gun, and he would say every single type of ammo. He would say specifically what the ammo was supposed to do, and then load it into the gun. And then he'd repeat that for every 6 shots that he puts in the damn thing, and then he kills the enemies. And that's pretty much the entire series. You just repeat that 14 times, and you have a series.
Well, it sounds to me it has more to do with Final Fantasy than the Spirits Within.
I kind of like the Spirits Within, but that's a story for another time, I suppose.
It's one of those things where it probably would have been better received if it hadn't been called Final Fantasy, much like the American Godzilla.
Perhaps. I kind of liked American Godzilla as well, but oh well.
But we had some real stinkers show up in the 90s, since we're talking about the 90s now. You had Darkstalkers and Street Fighter, which were both equally terrible, where it's like the animators were so lazy they couldn't be bothered to make sure the characters consistently looked the same.
Wow, that's just a sign of laziness right there.
And of course everybody knows, the Street Fighter cartoon because of Yes! Though my personal favorite line of Bison's was when he was confronted by Chun-Li at one point, and he's like, yes, I killed your father. I killed my father too, and you don't see me whining about it.
That's awesome.
The only time I ever saw that was on the most recent Screw Attack Death Battle, M. Bison versus Shao Kahn. I had to laugh at that. I'm like, is that in there? Did they just overdub it? I guess it's actually in there now.
He actually said that.
They picked a lot of really weird games to make TV shows based off of. Especially like if you're looking at like Saturday morning or just regular morning TV shows. You have stuff like Donkey Kong Country, which it was a weird CG animated one, which I guess kind of made sense for the art style of the game, because the art style was rendered 3D graphics. So I guess they figured that would translate into the cartoon series.
Yeah.
I never really watched it though.
I don't even remember it, honestly.
They had like this kind of a rap intro. I think they might have used the Donkey Kong Jam or whatever it is as the opening theme.
Actually, there's a different song. I think I can't even remember that off the top of my head, but it's definitely not the DK rap, because I know the DK rap. I hate the DK rap. I never watched it either because it kind of came out around the time where I was, in like later high school, going to college. I really didn't watch kid shows anymore. The only time I saw it was on French stations. Like, it was in French. I think it was actually made by a French Canadian company. So it would like air in French first and then in English.
The voice of Diddy Kong was the same person who voiced Yoshi in Super Mario World.
Oh, that's not reassuring.
That makes me want to go out and watch it right now.
Of course, they also had the Earthworm Jim series.
Yes, with Earthworm Jim voiced by Homer Simpson.
Oh!
And
That's as much as I know about it. I never watched it. I'm not actually I'm not really an Earthworm Jim fan. Like, I actually kind of regret getting the HD version on Xbox because I played it for one day and I never touched it again.
And we're all
Earthworm
glad.
Jim is pretty notoriously difficult, but
Yeah, we're all glad we opted out of 4-upping it.
Yes.
But the thing that was funny about the cartoon, like I was telling you guys earlier, it's basically like Freakazoid if you replace Freakazoid with Earthworm Jim. And the funny thing was, because of the way Psycho talked, I kind of talk like this, where it when Psycho and Jim were fighting each other, I was picturing in my mind Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin battling because of the way their voices sound.
that kind of fits. I mean, it lasted 2 seasons, 23 episodes, so
Yeah.
I guess it was popular enough to get a renewal.
It's entertaining. Like, if you like stuff like Freakazoid or The Tick, it's a good show. It's just, you know.
I guess the Tick kind of fits in that. Yeah, Earthworm Jim does kind of look like the Tick. He's got like the really huge upper body and does not really. He lives in a surrealist world. Because you have to think about how weird the freaking games are.
Yeah, I mean, considering the games don't even remotely take themselves seriously, there's not exactly a lot for them to screw up in the cartoon.
One of the first things you do in the first level is you launch a cow with a catapult. Why? You have to play through the rest of the game to find out.
Because we felt like it.
That'd be funny if you did that in the very first episode and then the cow would fall at like the series finale. Like, that's what happened.
I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happened.
You know what's funny is, since you mentioned that, a lot of times the episode would end with a cow falling on the villain, just out of nowhere, no explanation.
You'd be like, huh.
Oh, we won.
They'd just be like, huh, and it would fade to black. That's the end of the episode.
Oh, well, one, I guess. Okay.
I wanted to crush him.
But yeah, the Earthworm Jim is definitely oddly enough, one of the better video game cartoons. It's just that the games aren't that fun.
Did either of you watch the Sonic the Hedgehog? Getting away from the Nintendo circle jerk we've had for a while.
I watched both Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic SatAM, and I probably in the rare camp that liked both, obviously for different reasons.
The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was a very weird series, but it was creative nonetheless. It's basically not. It really is no bigger than like a Roadrunner cartoon. It's really no more serious than something like that.
Though I do have to say, one of the weirdest things in that cartoon is the fact that Dr. Robotnik built a female hedgehog robot to seduce Sonic that later ends up marrying his son.
Was that the one that got blew up by the robot's hand?
No.
No. It's just weird that Robotnik's son marries a robot hedgehog that was supposed to seduce Sonic. It's just like, what? You're creating furries ahead of their time.
I watched.
Not only that, they revived the Sonic the Hedgehog series in recent years. I mean, Sonic Underground, Sonic X. I've seen like one episode of it, and it was weird. I saw one episode of it, and it was like I remember them talking like where. They're trying to prevent him. They're trying to prevent Robotnik from getting the Chaos Emeralds, and then using like espionage to find the locations of them. It's like, when did Sonic the Hedgehog turn to fucking 24?
Well, the weird thing about the Sonic X anime, which it was an anime, it wasn't an American cartoon,
right.
Was it oddly, in spite of being an anime, decided to do something stupid that was similar to what the Darkstalkers American cartoon did, where they came up with
worked out so well.
Or came up with some dumb, convoluted storyline, so they had an excuse to introduce a kid character that's supposed to be a stand-in for the audience.
Which, I mean, using a proxy like that in a work of fiction is not a bad idea, but you have to do it the right way.
And it makes more sense if it's an interactive piece of fiction.
Also, a word of warning: if anybody is searching for the arts for the character design of Tails from Sonic X, do not Google search Sonic X Tails with the safe search off.
Oh,
Definitely don't search Rouge the Bat with the safe search off.
I just want to go back with the Adventures of Sonic Hedgehog and Sonic X at AM. Back when this was probably the only video game show that I could watch regularly in my area. It was weird because Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog would play, and then Sonic X at AM would play right after it, or they would put Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in between. I remember vividly, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog would turn my brain to mush. Turtles would save it a little bit, and then when Sonic X at AM came on, I'm just like, this is so much better. And I swear, Jim Cummings doing the voice of Dr. Robotnik was perfect. He's one of those classic voice actors. He gets everything done. I mean, when you're Jeremy Irons and you blow out your voice singing "Be Prepared," call it Jim Cummings. He'll replace you, no problem.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Sonic X at AM, and like a lot of people, I got pissed at the teaser series finale where Robotnik
my God,
is
it's Mecha Sonic
dead.
canceled.
Yeah. Actually, I remember vividly a few years ago. I think some fans were trying to make an ending to that. Like, they were trying to animate, like, hand-drawn animate.
I remember there was a group that wanted to, like, make their own Sonic series.
I don't know if it was going to be a series or a one-off, but they wanted to end that series. They wanted to continue it and give it a conclusive ending. I don't know what happened to it. It may have gotten shut down like so many other Sonic fan projects that Sega likes to do, like Sonic 2 HD or... I can't even think of it. Like, there's tons of stuff that people or Streets Rage,
or someone talking, or even just people talking about Shining Force on YouTube.
Yeah,
right. Okay, well, let's.
Shit, we mentioned Shining Force.
Oh crap! No.
Crap.
Okay, we're back. So let's finish up the episode by talking about something that was a very interesting adaptation of video games into TV shows. Video games that were made into game shows. Specifically, probably one of the more famous one that most people don't even realize was a video game, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And its spin-off Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego.
I don't know how people could not know that was a video game, but...
Well, I know a lot of people remember it more fondly from the TV show.
The cartoon.
Not really the cartoon, but the game show. They did have a cartoon, which I remember was fairly interesting, because later on she ended up finding a time machine, and I've always loved like time travel and speculative fiction in that sense. But I remember the TV show, the game show, being actually really good.
I don't believe I ever saw the game show.
It was on like the PBS stations. Over here it was I think KTTV or something.
I saw those.
KCT, yeah.
I used to watch those all the time on PBS. Like, it was educational, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, it's
and, like, you wanted these kids to win too. Like,
yeah, you really wanted them to win. It's like every time somebody got North America, it's like, oh, he's totally gonna win.
Yeah, there was the thing at the end where the winning kid, there was this giant map of the world, and the guy would give you like tips, like the Eiffel Tower is Paris. Go find Paris. And you had like these sticks with sirens.
Yeah, these sticks
you had to put them down.
You had to place it down on that location, and if it was right, it would go off, and you had to get like 8 out of 12 or something. But it's like then somebody would get like Africa, and it's like, who the fuck? What kid that age knows where the fuck things are in Africa? She went to Kenya. Go to Kenya. What the?
Kenya's here by Russia.
Where are the tigers? Where? Only in Kenya. What? Yeah, that was a good. And then it had who was it? Lynn Thigpen as the chief, and then of course what was the guy's name? The host. I don't remember. I want to say Mark O'Malley, but that wasn't right. That was the host of Nickelodeon Guts.
I don't remember the host. I do remember the chief because she was one of the.
She later came back in her time as Carmen Sandiego.
I actually remember her more for her guest appearances on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She was one of Will Smith's aunts.
I believe she was
there was
also.
like 4 of them.
I think she was also in Bicentennial Man as like one of the judges.
I never seen Bicentennial Man. I think we're going way off track with the obscure references.
Yeah, we're going with stuff I don't even know.
She was
what
like
we're
the one character
anymore.
that actually came back in Where in Time as Carmen Sandiego, which was essentially a sequel to a game show which I've never fucking seen before. But it's the same structure. They had the 3 kids. They had to answer questions this time about history instead of about geography. But we have about 10 minutes left. So, which of you remembers the short-lived game show based off of You Don't Know Jack?
Not me.
Not me. I never even played the game.
It lasted about 2 episodes, and it was hosted by Paul Rubens, who you may know as Pee Wee Herman. Of course, it was Paul Rubens, and he wasn't playing Paul Rubens. He was playing somebody else. I think he was like playing some guy named Jack, actually.
You know, you want to talk about obscure stuff that no one remembers. You should talk about Power Team.
Oh, the Power Team. That was I'd imagine that one was created to compete with Captain N, except they chose the worst fucking characters for it.
Well, what it was all the characters were characters from games made by Acclaim, because at the time they had not yet had any of their stuff accepted into Captain N, though they did include Wizards and Warriors in Captain N later. But the main characters they had were Kyros, some basketball player I can't remember the name of, that tomato guy, and then
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, yeah.
The fucking monster truck Bigfoot as one of the main characters.
And like they never fight any of the villains from their own games. They always fought this mobster guy from Narc. I was just like, what?
Who the fuck remembers Narc? Oh, who the fuck remembers Quirk?
I don't know. The sad thing is, like, it was one of those things where even when the other villains did show up, it was just like a temporary thing, and then they went back to the same shitty villain.
There was also, of course, they also announced the new Halo series. Which, what the hell is going to happen with that?
I don't know, because, like, Halo right now as a franchise is kind of in a bit of a disarray, because it just got announced that the teaser that they showed at E3 for Halo was not Halo 5. It's not being titled Halo 5. So we don't even know what's going on with that. Halo, the TV series, is supposed to be something that's going to debut exclusively on Xbox One as part of their it's like the Microsoft Entertainment. I don't know the full name of it, but it's like one of many shows that they're going to bring to the Xbox One exclusively. I've been also hearing talks that they're going to try and revive Heroes.
So it's the Xbox Live equivalent of the Tester.
Oh,
and stuff like that.
Oh, fuck.
That God. They have on PlayStation.
I think I could do a whole podcast on just the Tester and all, like, 4 seasons there were?
I never watched the show.
I never either.
I've been a game tester. I don't need to watch people try to get into that hell.
Well, the thing is that show, they don't do anything regarding testing. They just do, like, the stupid challenges that you would see on something like Survivor or Big Brother. I never watched them, like, fully with, like, their conversations or whatever. I actually just watched, like, Screw Attack, like, riff on them. And it's usually the one season that they had 8-Bit Mickey, and then the next one with Egoraptor. Which Egoraptor just went on just to, put his name out there. He didn't really want the job.
Wasn't that also the show Big Physique was on? That guy that got in a huge internet spat with Lord Cat?
Oh, jeez. I think he was on the Tester as well, yeah.
Yeah, that was him.
You had some interesting drama surrounding the Tester, even though none of us watched it. We know this random shit.
But that's more of a TV show based on gaming culture, so if anything, we would end up discussing that in the next episode. So I'm guessing we're reaching the end of this one. Ozzie, where can people find you?
planetarcane.blogspot.com.
And Johnny, what about you?
They can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/achievementhorejohn.
And you can find me at TestZero.net, and you can find all of us at ReviewersUnknown.com. Everybody, take care, and we will see you folks later.